On this edition of Early Look, I'm going to be previewing the UFC 318 main event for the BMF title, the trilogy between BMF champion Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier. My name is James Lynch. If you never watched the show before, I'm going to go through a bunch of different stats and intangibles, then I'm going to give you my prediction for this fight at the end. Let me know in the comments after you're done watching the video which way you're leaning. I don't just want to pick. I want to hear your actual prediction for this fight. Again, going to be taking place in New Orleans, Louisiana. 5-round main event, BMF title at the Smoothie King Center. I had to double check that one. That is, in fact, a real place. And this is going to be Dustin Poirier's retirement fight. So this fight sort of came together because they needed someone for Poirier to fight for his last fight. I guess he wanted to Poirier or Gaethje, but they ended up going in a different direction. And now we get the trilogy between Holloway and Poirier. We'll talk about their previous 2 fights in this. But let's do a quick tail of the tape like we normally do here. Max Holloway, you can see 26-8 record. Poirier 30-9. 33 years old for Holloway, 36 for Dustin Poirier. 5'11 to 5'9, 69 to 73. So Dustin Poirier can have the reach advantage in this fight. Holloway going to be a little bit taller. He's also 3 years younger. We're going to start first with blessed Max Holloway and talk a little bit about everything he's got going on right now. So again, Holloway is the current BMF champion. He won that title against Justin Gaethje at UFC 300. He's got 12 knockouts, 2 submissions, and 12 decisions. He's currently ranked number 4 in the lightweight division. I don't know how they figure all that out. I guess because he beat Gaethje. Sorry, as we're zooming in here. I mentioned it there, 33 years old, 5'11 with a 69-inch reach. He'll have a 2-inch height advantage, and he's 3 years younger. He's the former UFC featherweight champion. He had 3 successful title defenses. He's the first American to win the UFC featherweight title. I mentioned it there, current BMF champ. He's got knockout of the night, fight of the night, and he's got fight of the night 7 times in his career. Very impressive stats there. Holloway made his amateur debut way back in November of 2006. Made his pro debut in September of 2010, and then made his UFC debut in February of 2012, which was against Dustin Poirier. So this is kind of interesting because typically like someone with a 4-0 record would probably go in Contender Series. They wouldn't get called to the UFC. So got into the UFC a little bit early, and imagine if you knew what you knew now, you'd be fighting Dustin Poirier in your UFC debut. That's pretty tough there. So that's kind of interesting there as well. Holloway's fought in different weight classes, so this will be his 7th time fighting at 155. He's fought there 6 times previously. This is both outside the UFC and in the UFC as well. He's fought a catchweight fight 1 time against Clay Collard, which was I think the fight he ended up winning. Came in at 149 for that one. And then he's fought 26 times at 145 at featherweight. So that's something to keep in mind too. Obviously, Poirier is a former featherweight as well. Holloway is 21-8 in the UFC. He's got 12 stoppage victories. Interesting thing with him, went 3-3 to start his UFC career. So he gets 3 wins, 3 losses. And those losses, Dennis Bermudez was a fight that I think should have gone his way. But Poirier and McGregor, imagine your first 6 fights in the UFC. You got to fight Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor in one sort of run there. It's very, very tough outing there. Some notable wins for Holloway. There's a whole bunch, but let's go through some of the more recent. Well, actually, no, we'll go through all of them here quickly. So notable wins for Max Holloway in his career: Andre Fili, Cub Swanson, Charles Oliveira, Jeremy Stevens, Anthony Pettis, Jose Aldo twice, Brian Ortega, Frankie Edgar, Calvin Kattar, Yair Rodriguez, Arnold Allen, the Korean Zombie, and Justin Gaethje. He's also got 2 losses to Dustin Poirier. He's got a loss to Conor McGregor, Dennis Bermudez, and 3 losses to Alex Volkanovski. His last fight, was a knockout loss to Ilia Topuria. First time he was knocked out in his career. He's had a number of layoffs throughout his career. If you go all the way back to the Aldo to Ortega fight, going from there was a 371-day layoff. Going from Yair Rodriguez to Alex Volkanovski, there was a 231-day layoff. Going from Volkanovski to Allen, there was a 287-day layoff. Going from Zombie to Justin Gaethje, 231-day layoff, and then going into this fight, going from Topuria to Poirier, 266-day layoff. So not the longest of his career, but definitely I think in the top 3 as far as some time off, but he probably needed it after getting finished in his last fight. He's had a number of injuries throughout his career. We don't need to go through those. Had a number of close fights as well. The one that I'll just mention is the second Volkanovski fight. If you go look at the media scorecards for that one, that was at UFC 251. He lost a split decision there. If you go on MMA decisions right now, let's go have a quick look. So a lot of people did feel like Holloway should have got the nod there. That was this fight here, UFC 270. Oh no, sorry, that's the wrong one. That's the one where Volk clearly won. This is the one here, the UFC 251 card. So if you go look at the media scorecards for that one, most had Holloway winning, although a lot of had Volkanovski winning as well. So again, majority of media felt like Holloway should have won 48-47, but he doesn't end up getting that one. That's probably the only fight that people sort of reference when it comes to close fights with Max Holloway. Some other stuff to mention with Holloway here as well. Let's look at his UFC stats, which are very impressive. I think he's got one of the highest rates in this category here. Look at this. Significant strikes landed per minute, 7.16. That's got to be the highest since I've been doing this show. I mean, I don't know anyone who's got a higher clip rate than that. Like even someone like Alex Pereira doesn't have a 7.16. Holloway does land a lot of shots. He's also been in a lot of 5-round fights, so that sort of helps his case as well. His striking accuracy is at 47%. His striking defense is at 59%. So he does get hit a bit, but still close to 60% striking defense. That's very good for Holloway. His takedown average is 0.25. Takedown accuracy is at 53%. His takedown defense is 83%. Could pay dividends in this fight if Poirier is looking to get this to the mat. So again, pretty impressive stats there for Max Holloway. Now let's move along to his opponent, Dustin Poirier, the Diamond, who this will be his retirement fight. He's 30-9. He's got 15 knockouts, 8 submissions, and 7 decisions. He's 35 years old. He's 5'9" with a 73-inch reach. So he'll have, if my math is correct here, he'll have about a 4-inch reach advantage in this fight, but Holloway's going to be a bit taller. He's also 3 years younger, so that's something to mention. Poirier is a BJJ black belt, trains out of American Top Team. He's currently ranked, where has he got in the lightweight division as far as the rankings go? He is currently ranked, I forgot to write this in my notes, he's currently ranked number 5. So Holloway's actually ranked higher than Poirier. That's something that's interesting. Just to kind of note, he was the former interim UFC lightweight champion. He's got fight of the night 10 times. Not going to go through all those names. Had his amateur debut way back in 2007, so about a year after Max Holloway had his amateur debut. Made his pro debut in May of 2009. Made his UFC debut against Josh Grisby in January of 2011. He's 22-8 in the UFC. He's got 15 stoppage victories. Poirier has fought 28 times at lightweight. He's fought 10 times at featherweight, and he's had 2 catchweight fights. Some notable wins for Dustin Poirier include Max Holloway. He's got 2 wins over him. Bobby Green, Jim Miller, Anthony Pettis, Justin Gaethje, Eddie Alvarez, Dan Hooker, Conor McGregor. He's got 2 wins over him. Michael Chandler and Benoit Saint Denis. Some notable losses for him include Korean Zombie, Cub Swanson, Conor McGregor, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, and Islam Makhachev. And he's had a couple layoffs. More recently, had some layoffs here. So one thing I kind of forgot about going into this fight is that if you look at the layoff going from the Islam fight, which was last June, I forgot it was that long ago, to fighting Holloway, there'll be a 414-day layoff going into this fight. So this is actually the longest layoff of Poirier's career. The second longest was the one that he had going from Oliveira to Chandler. There was a 336-day layoff in between there, but he's mostly had like 200-day layoffs, 300-day layoffs around there, but 414, that will be the longest of his career. So something to keep in mind when you're looking at this fight, that Poirier's going to have a pretty long layoff here. Let's go look at Poirier's UFC stats here. Again, 5.30, so the significant strikes definitely differ here. Poirier not landing as much as, or not having as much output as Holloway's at 7.16. Poirier is still very impressive at 5.30. His striking accuracy is at 50%, so maybe not as high as Holloway's. His striking defense is also lower too, at 52% compared to 59 for Holloway. But the takedown average is the big one here, 1.24. That's much higher than Holloway's. Takedown accuracy is at 36%, and his takedown defense is at 64%. His sub average is 1.3. Compared that to Holloway, was at 0.3, so Holloway not really known for his submissions here. Couple things we should go over before we get into the odds and everything else is their first couple fights. So let's look first at the Max Holloway fight, his UFC debut. I mentioned it there. He was only 4-0 when he fought Poirier, because a lot of people don't like this fight because they're like, oh, Poirier's already beat him twice. But the context matters here, people, and that's what I'm going to go through here. So this fight took place at UFC 143 Diaz versus Condit, February 2012. Not much to take away from here, other than Poirier gets the first round finish. It's the only fighter to submit Max Holloway is Dustin Poirier, and that was a first round finish in that one. But here's a key context that people are missing out on this one. Look at the odds here. Poirier was minus 545. Holloway is plus 425. Poirier was 11-1 at the time. Holloway was 4-0. It was a mismatch at the time. So again, when people are talking about, oh, I don't want to see this fight again, these aren't even close to the same fighters as before. Poirier was 23, Holloway was 20. Imagine being 20 and you're fighting Dustin Poirier in your UFC debut. So I think this is important because I think people referencing this fight, yeah, it happened, but I don't think, I mean, this is 2025. I don't really think this is much to talk about. Again, Poirier was 96% of people were picking Poirier going into this fight. So it was really sort of a suicide mission for Max Holloway going into this fight. It wasn't very fair. Now, the second fight, that's more of something we can take away because that wasn't that long ago. That was in 2019. So that was the fight. Took place at UFC 236, Holloway Poirier 2. That was in Atlanta, Georgia, April 13th, 2019. Now, again, Holloway was favored in this fight, so the odds were flipped this time, but Poirier came through as the plus 200 underdog. But a couple things to note from that fight. So the reason this fight took place, this was for the interim UFC lightweight title. That was because of the suspension for Khabib Nurmagomedov with the Conor McGregor brawl. So he was suspended for 9 months, wasn't going to get this fight. Interesting thing, Tony Ferguson was actually supposed to fight Holloway. It wasn't Poirier. Ferguson turned down the fight. This is widely reported in the news. You can go look at it there. So it was actually Poirier who stepped up on short notice in this fight. The thing too, Holloway fought Brian Ortega in December. I was at that card that was in Toronto, put a beating on Brian Ortega, ended up winning via doctor stoppage. So he fights in December, ends up getting this fight here in April, which isn't like a huge layoff, but also Holloway's fighting up a weight class, so he didn't really have time to like bulk up. Poirier had been in the weight class for a little while before that, right? So if you look at Poirier, as far as him fighting Max Holloway back in 2019, where is it here? Max Holloway right here. He had a number of fights at lightweight prior to getting this fight. So in other words, Poirier was really the true lightweight here. Holloway wasn't. So that's, again, something to kind of keep in mind here. Now, if you go back and watch the fight, I think Poirier won this 4 to 1, I should say. I had Poirier winning 1, 2, 4, and 5. I had Holloway winning just round 3, but it was obviously a decisive win here for Dustin Poirier. And again, I think that it's a fight that gives us some glimpse into what's happened, but I think with Holloway now getting a bit more time off this time around, it's pretty much known now that Holloway's going to stay at 155. He's not going to go back down to 145. The fact that he fought at 155 last year as well, I think Holloway's coming more into this frame now, and I think this will be a bit of a different fight than what we saw back in 2019. A couple other notes from this fight moving forward. So since that fight, Dustin Poirier has gone 5-4. Holloway's gone 6-4. They do have a common opponent in Justin Gaethje. Poirier obviously got knocked out by Justin Gaethje in July of 2023 at UFC 291, and then Holloway got the knockout win over him at UFC 300 in April of 2024. Again, MMA math doesn't work, but just one thing I wanted to point out when looking at this fight. Okay, let's look at the odds right now. So if you look right now, should have had this up. It's okay. We're doing this on the fly here. So if you look at it there, Dustin Poirier right now, for this fight, actually, I need to find UFC 318 odds, which I'm sure we'll have here. So if you look at it there, right now you see Dustin Poirier is the favorite, almost minus 225 on some books. Sorry, that's Chandler. Never mind, that's not what we're looking for. Yeah, you'll see there Max Holloway is actually the favorite here. So I was right the first time. Should have just stuck on there. But you'll see we got some odds for this with some books having Poirier as the favorite, some books having it dead even, some books having it as Max Holloway as the favorite. So again, this fight's pretty close on paper, and that's sort of the way I'm thinking too. But if you look on Tapology, it tells a bit of a different story. Max Holloway, people are favoring him there 62%, just 38% for Dustin Poirier. Okay, close fight. Again, it's Poirier's retirement fight. There's a lot on the line here. Which way am I leaning on this one? I'm going to go with Max Holloway in this fight. Okay, here's why, and here's how I'm picking him. I think Max Holloway gets a decision here. Okay, so a couple things on this. This is where I landed on this conclusion. 53% of Poirier's wins are by KO. Holloway's only been knocked out one time in his career, and that was in his last fight against Ilia Topuria. I think we can all agree here. Ilia Topuria's got way more power than Dustin Poirier does. I don't think Poirier's going to knock him out. He could, but I think Holloway, even though he just got finished in his last fight, I think he's still durable enough to withstand Dustin Poirier over 5 rounds. Poirier's older and has a big layoff coming into this fight. I mentioned the 414 days. That's, not a great circumstance, not to mention this is Poirier's retirement fight. Like, for him to go out on his shield, I mean, never say never with MMA retirements, but this is in New Orleans. That's where Poirier is from. Like, there's a lot of pressure here for him to win, and we know that this is his last fight. This isn't going to be Max Holloway's last fight. I think that does play a little bit into this. Like, Poirier has way more pressure on him than Max Holloway does, and I know Poirier's risen to the occasion. We saw the fight last year with Islam Makhachev, very good performance in that one, but I don't know. I think that's a lot to deal with Holloway. Is just like, this is a new weight class for me. We'll see where it goes. Holloway's only ever been submitted one time in his career, and that was against Poirier. I mentioned that he was just 4-0, 20 years old. And I think that's important here because if you look at Poirier, we think of him as a good striker, but he's also got 7 wins by submission as well. I don't think the submission threat is going to be that big in this fight either. I think Holloway can survive that. Again, Poirier is used to winning by knockout, but he's fighting a guy who's pretty tough to knock out. Holloway does have better striking defense than Poirier. That's another thing. I think if it does stay on the feet, I think it's fairly even. I do. I think it's going to be fairly even in that regard now as well. And then the other thing too is that, Holloway, I think he has been bulking up the last little bit to be in that frame for 155. I think he performs better at 155. And another thing to consider here, Holloway has not been knocked out at 155 either. I think that will be a factor here, and that I don't know if Poirier is going to, be able to hit the button. Now, with that said, okay, so let's say we don't see a finisher. And again, Holloway's not much of a finisher himself. He did get the knockout win over Justin Gaethje, but you look at that prior, other than I think Korean Zombie, he hasn't really finished a lot of opponents. Now, granted, a lot of these were the fights against Volk, but still, you look at it here, Gaethje, Korean Zombie, outside that, decision. Even Ortega was a 4th-round doctor stoppage. So Holloway's not a big finisher, so that's why I'm not leaning finish in this fight. And if we're looking at the stats here, again, you got a guy in Max Holloway who is outlanding. His significant strikes landed per minute are far greater. His striking accuracy is a little bit lower than Poirier's, but not by much, by like 3%. But saying that, look at the striking defense here, 52% for Holloway, who's got 59%. So that's kind of why I'm leaning Holloway decision here. I do think this fight goes the distance. I know that may be crazy to some people, but I do see the fight landing that way. And maybe the judges do get swayed towards Poirier. That could be a factor here too. But I just think Holloway, being a little bit younger by a couple years, I think that'll be just the edge he needs to get this a decision win on his end. So my official pick for this one is going to be Max Holloway via decision over Dustin Poirier to get the slight upset, because I do believe Poirier is slightly favored here just a little bit. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. What is your prediction for this fight? How do you see this one unfolding? Let me know in the comments. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, at Lynch on Sports. This is Early Look. If there's any other fights you guys want me to preview that are coming up here for Early Look, let me know in the comments. Always like to hear your feedback. And I'll see you guys next time. Appreciate you watching.